This week on Jerusalem Dateline, the rising threat of global anti-Semitism. Will the European Union take steps to make it worse? Plus, restoring a symbol of the fight for Israel's independence. How a windmill project strengthened bonds between Christians and Jews. And he's the most influential Jew outside of the State of Israel. Billionaire Ron Lauder shares his views on Christian persecution. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. We're coming to you from Brussels, Belgium, the seat of the European Parliament. And right now we're in the middle of the famous Grand Place. We're here to cover a story on the new EU guidelines boycotting products from Israel. Some say it's a sign of a growing tide of anti-Semitism around the world, and some believe the seeds of a new Holocaust have already been planted. Julie Stahl has that story from Jerusalem.
Less than 70 years ago, a veil of secrecy fell, revealing the shocking horrors of the Holocaust. The images seared our minds, and the world vowed never again.
If you live in a world in which the leader, both religious and political, openly speak about destroying the State of Israel, I think there's a good reason to fear another Holocaust.
With that thought, Israelis paused for 2 minutes to honor the memory of the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. A recent opinion poll here found some 40% of Israelis believe the Holocaust could happen again, and 43% are concerned Israel could be destroyed. Nazi hunter Dr. Ephraim Zuroff blames the rise of both traditional and new forms of anti-Semitism.
Incidents, efforts to delegitimize Israel, unfair criticism of Israel, attacks on Jews, this is something that is very widespread.
Frightening examples include this recent scene in France where a Taliban-trained terrorist gunned down a teacher, 2 of his children, and an 8-year-old girl at a Jewish school. And in Hungary, a parliamentarian recalled a 130-year-old case. That's where Jews were accused and then acquitted of murdering a Christian girl to use her blood in the Passover holiday. Experts say anti-Semitism is also changing.
One of the most important and most dangerous transformations has been to change the focus of the hate from the individual Jew or the Jewish community, local Jewish community, to the State of Israel.
If you sit together in an evening dinner with some friends in Europe or United States or Northern America, it's much more politically correct to say bloody Israelis, but you mean the bloody Jews.
Anti-Semitism expert Dr. Raphael Vago is the son of Holocaust survivors.
They are transferring the traditional hatred towards the Jews in trying to destabilize or to delegitimize, rather, the State of Israel today.
Even worse is its presence in the political arena. During a Remembrance Day ceremony, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Iranian regime was working openly to destroy the people of Israel. Zuroff says the West needs to stand up and prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb because its leaders won't stop with Israel.
The Jews are always the first victims, but never the last victims. So in other words, by fighting against anti-Semitism, you're not only helping the Jewish people, you're helping yourselves.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
To find out more about this growing tide of anti-Semitism, we talk with Thomas Sandel from the European Coalition for Israel. Thomas Sandel, we're here outside the European Parliament, and you're with the European Coalition for Israel. And why are you here today?
It's a very special day for us because today we are marking the 10th anniversary of the European Coalition for Israel, and we are organizing a very important conference inside the European Parliament.
And what are you going to be addressing? What are the issues you're going to be addressing?
Well, it's basically going back to the fundamental, the foundations of EU-Israeli relations, to ask the questions, well, why are things the way they are? Why does Israel consider Europe to be an enemy and not a friend? Mm-hmm. Also to look at some very current issues, or I could say expressions of this hostility from Europe.
And one of those challenges, I believe, is new guidelines. What are those guidelines?
Well, these are guidelines that basically would restrict any European company or anyone who would want to use European funds to cooperate with Israeli entities in the disputed territories. So it's not only that, but it goes even further. It means, say, a university that would be involved in a multi-million cooperation program with the EU. If you happen to have a professor living, say, in East Jerusalem, they could no longer qualify for funding according to these guidelines.
Right. So does this represent tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars?
Hundreds of millions.
So it's a big economic challenge to Israel.
It's a very big economic challenge.
Do you see this as one more sign or a sign of anti-Semitism that's sort of veiled in different language?
I do, and I would put it very simply. In the 1930s, and especially on Kristallnacht, they said, you know, don't buy from the Jews, kauf nichts beim Juden. Today it's a different language, boycott Israel, but the motivation, the hatred is all the same.
And you mentioned Kristallnacht. This is the 75th anniversary of that time. Do you see the similar scenario or the circumstances today as Europe did 75 years ago?
Sadly, I do, and I think it will upset many that I state that, but I think what starts by singling out Jews, being their businesses, their synagogues, Jewish people as such, never stops there. And I think we need to be diligent and raise our voices, not when it's too late, but when we see the first signs, and we are seeing those signs right now.
And when you see those signs, what can Christians do?
I think we say in our organization, pray, educate, advocate. Obviously, we need to pray. It's a spiritual battle, but also we need to educate ourselves, educate our friends to say, well, this is what is going on, these are the facts. And lastly, we need to advocate, as we will do later today in the European Parliament. Reach out, engage with the decision makers to say, well, we disagree and these are our arguments, these are the reasons.
And it really can have an impact.
And it can have an impact. And we've seen throughout these 10 years, time and time again, how people can really change policies by praying, by educating and by advocating.
Great. Well, Thomas, thank you for joining us on Jerusalem Dateline. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now here's the rest of the news this week about Israel and the Middle East.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlene Israel. President Obama is asking Congress not to add more sanctions against Iran to deter its nuclear program. He wants to give the international community more time to work out a diplomatic solution. The major powers came close to striking a deal to ease sanctions on Iran earlier this month. Meanwhile, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu says he's not impressed with reports that Iran has not expanded its nuclear program. The prime minister says Iran already has the ability to create the material to build a nuclear bomb.
They've got enough facilities, enough centrifuges to develop and to complete the fissile material which is at the core of an atomic bomb. They have that. And the test today is not whether they add to the capacity they already have. The question is, will the international community roll back what they have?
The international negotiations are scheduled to resume this week. Israeli intelligence minister Yuval Steinitz is warning against any type of deal on Iran's nuclear program, saying any kind of agreement between Tehran and leading world powers would actually legitimize Iran's nuclear program. Steinitz says it would be very difficult for the international community to backtrack on a deal once it is signed.
Now, under the umbrella of this interim partial agreement, Iran is actually, in a very sophisticated way, achieved legitimation, international legitimation for being and remaining, at least for the time being, a threshold nuclear country.
That means Iran could achieve nuclear capability in less than a year, despite the fact they have violated United Nations sanctions. Tiny Israel is always one of the first countries to respond to natural disasters around the world, and the weekend typhoon in the Philippines is no different. A 6-person advance team from Israel's military reserves headed to the Philippines on Sunday. They'll assess the situation and prepare for a larger contingent. Nevolel Glick is from Isra Aid, the organization funding the mission. He says they will partner with Christians to deliver their help.
With the partners on the ground, It's trying to use the network, the incredible network that they have there and that they've prepared already and that they're getting together. Maybe all the different churches, all different communities, maybe some of the connections, like making sure that we make it onto a plane first and trying to get there as quickly as possible. And we're coordinating everything with them. They're, a very, very precious partner that we've had for a long time, and we're happy to go back and be able to help as much as we can.
Israel's team will probably include medical and trauma experts. Christian groups are helping the needy in Israel and the Palestinian territories. CBN's Operation Blessing is giving shelter and hope to abused girls in Bethlehem.
Meet Samara, Maha, and Aziza. At first glance, it's hard to tell these girls came from homes where they were beaten and abused. But today, they have a safe place to live at the Bethlehem Girls' Home.
This house is the only house in all Palestine for such girls.
Diana Mubarak is the Director of Social Affairs for the town of Bethlehem. She knows firsthand money is tight for this government-run home, and the needs are great.
We were in a very bad situation here. The building was very bad.
In the winter, this old stone building gets very cold. The girls sleep on beds covered with worn-out sheets. Some even use towels as blankets. And the cabinets where they keep their clothes are broken and full of splinters. Recently, the girls' home got a visit from Operation Blessing Israel, and we saw a chance to help. While the girls were away at school one day, our team of volunteers went to work. We gave the girls warm bedding and rugs and brand new wooden cabinets. A few hours later, the girls came home to see their new rooms.
When I walked in here, I couldn't believe it. The rooms were so dark before, and now they are shining.
The Operation Blessing, I can see that they are one of the few organizations that in a short time, they think about us and they promise us, and suddenly they show.
Thank you very, 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 very much.
Coming up, a sign of hope for Israel. How restoring a windmill is reviving Israel's forgotten history.
Hi, my name is Breda. I'm just your typical 9-year-old. I love singing, dancing, reading, discovering the simple truth. My grandpa says you're never too young or old to learn the value of a dollar. He taught me the true value of this paper dollar. You see this little gold coin? It says $1 on it. But guess what? That was a long time ago. Today, this gold dollar is worth over 100 paper dollars. This paper dollar is now only worth 1 penny compared to America's former money, the gold dollar. My grandpa says the only money worth saving today is real money, gold or silver coins. He's pretty smart. How our paper dollars lost their value, he says. It's all explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. It's easy and fun to read. If you call the number on the screen, I will send you a copy totally free. Next time, I will explain the simple truth about money.
Help! If an emergency happened right now, you can have help at the push of a button with Medical Alert.
Remember when I took that fall, Mary?
Oh, yes, that was terrible.
Yes, it was.
Help!
And I thought, what if you hadn't been there? I ordered my Medical Alert the next day.
I can't describe how safe I feel now with my Medical Alert. You didn't know I was wearing it, did you?
Medical Alert is easy to install, waterproof, and covers you inside your home and out.
It helps me feel safe from fires, break-ins.
And of course, a Medical Alert. And if you don't have a home phone, don't worry. They have that covered.
There's always help at the push of a button. Don't wait till you need it.
Get Medical Alert for less than $1 a day. There are no long-term contracts. Order now and get your second button free. Call for your free brochure.
For your free Medical Alert system with second button free, call 800-575-8507.
The Christian bond with Israel grew a lot stronger not too long ago. It happened through a project that led Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to credit Christian Zionists with a crucial role in founding the modern state of Israel. Julie Stahl has that story.
This windmill has been a Jerusalem landmark for more than 150 years, and now it's working again, thanks to a team effort. The Jerusalem Foundation, a group of Dutch Christians and government ministries, paid for the restoration work. That prompted praise for Christian Zionists from Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I don't believe that the Jewish state and modern Zionism would have been possible without Christian Zionism. I think that the many Christian supporters of the rebirth of the Jewish state and the ingathering of the Jewish people in the 19th century made possible the rise of Jewish Zionism.
A wealthy British Jew, Sir Moses Montefiore, established the windmill as part of the first Jewish settlements, or suburbs, outside the old city walls in the mid-1800s.
This is really the beginning of the new city, the modern city, the rebirth of Jerusalem.
Montefiore's great-great-nephew, Simon Montefiore, is a historian and author.
And so from this little windmill and these Montefiore cottages, just outside the Jaffa Gate, started all the suburbs around the old city walls, and that grew into the huge modern city of Jerusalem.
During Israel's independence war, Jewish fighters used the windmill to defend the city. In 1948, the British blew up the top of the windmill in what they called Operation Don Quixote. It was later restored for looks, but it never worked.
Almost every year I was here and I see the mill, and I feel the pain of the mill, and I think one day we have to give new life to the mill.
Windmill expert and Dutch Christian Gerrit Koenen initiated the restoration project and got others involved.
And I believe with the help of God, and I think it's the plan of God to repair, to restore the windmill, because it's more than a windmill, it's a symbol.
Dutch millwright Willem Dijkstra says he studied old photos and material for the restorations that took about 3 months.
It's not like the rebuilding, you do a reconstruction, so you have to try to find the most closest way how it was in the early times.
A few months from now, shafts and machinery will be installed to grind flour as the mill did for its first 20 years.
For me, it's more than a mill. I like the mills very much because my family for 100 years were millers. Personally, I'm convinced that this mill is a sign of hope for the Jewish people here in Israel. It is connected to the resurrection of the state of Israel after 2,000 years.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Up next, an exclusive interview with Ron Lauder. He explains why Jews are standing against the growing tide of Christian persecution.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions, just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card, just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
American businessman Ron Lauder is one of the world's strongest Jewish voices. Educated in Paris and here in Brussels, he's been a strong spokesman for Israel and against anti-Semitism. He's also now speaking out against Christian persecution as well. Julie Stahl recently sat down with Lauder for an exclusive interview in Jerusalem. Here's part of that interview.
Ron Lauder, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline. We're glad to have you with us.
Delighted to be here this morning.
There's a growing anti-Semitism in the world. What's behind that?
There's two types. The first type is the anti-Israel feeling. People say, I'm not anti-Semite, I'm just anti-Israel. We find that mainly in Western Europe, where you have a great deal of Muslim populations who are stirring the pot, and is talking about the Israel-Palestinian area. And then you have a different type of anti-Semitism, and that is in Eastern Europe. It's because of what's happened financially in the world. When bad times come about, extremes come up. And these extremes have to blame somebody for the problems, and they're blaming the Jewish people once again. We see the same recurrence we saw in the 1930s, and it's very scary. But there's also an anti-Christian feeling. We've seen that also coming out. We've seen it in the Middle East particularly, when churches are burned, when people are killed. People are scared.
What's the response of the Jewish community, the Christian community?
World Jewish Congress, of which I am honored to be president, is working very, very hard with the various governments saying this cannot be. And one of the things we are speaking about, and I spoke about in Jerusalem several weeks ago, to a wonderful group of people, great Christian evangelists, I said to them, look, we, the Jewish people, will no longer be silent. Will no longer be silent when churches are burnt, when Coptic Christians are killed just because they're Coptic Christians.
Now, this speech that you made at the Christian Embassy, that was somewhat unprecedented.
I didn't realize it was unprecedented when I gave it. After the speech, many people came to me and said, we've never heard a Jewish leader speak like this. I didn't realize it. I just talked from my heart. And I talked because of the fact that various groups, various Christian groups, have been the biggest supporters of Israel. We all share Jerusalem and its value. And as we walk in the streets, we know it's the place where your Lord walked. And that's so important. That's our history. That's our foundation. And we must do everything we can to protect it.
It seems to be blossoming, the relationship between Jews and Christians right now. Why do you think it's happening now?
I think there's two reasons. Number one, we realize we have a common goal, and we realize we have perhaps a common enemy. And the second aspect is there is a feeling that something must be done, because if you allow this to go, it gets worse and worse. And every time something's done, be it to Jews or to Christians, it hurts us all. We must work together.
Up next, universities in the U.S., Europe, and the Middle East are turning young people against Israel. Now, students around the world can learn how to defend the Jewish state.
Grace, music is unpredictable.
I know I have what it takes.
The Dove Foundation raves. Grace Unplugged is remarkable and inspiring.
This is not about the music. It's about everything else that goes with it.
Dad, were you watching me?
A moving and meaningful film.
This book, his words shook me. It was like my whole world.
That parents and teens should see together, says Focus on the Family.
What are you going to do? You're going to drag her back home?
Yeah, I might. I think maybe you're fighting God. Just stop running.
Grace Unplugged, rated PG, now playing.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than BOSLEY. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose BOSLEY.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
Grace, music is unpredictable.
I know I have what it takes.
The Dove Foundation raves. Grace Unplugged is remarkable and inspiring.
This is not about the music, it's about everything else that goes with it.
Dad, were you watching me?
A moving and meaningful film.
This book, his words shook me. It was like my whole world.
That parents and teens should see together, says Focus on the Family.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna drag her back home?
Yeah, I might. I think maybe you're fighting God. Just stop running.
Grace Unplugged, rated PG, now playing.
In today's Middle East, it seems that fewer young people stand up for Israel. A new online university is trying to change that by providing Jewish and Christian students with a better understanding of the Jewish state. Israel is under siege at American universities and at campuses around the world.
Israel really doesn't meet the requirements of a legitimate state.
Now a course from Jerusalem Online University gives students and others the tools to fight back.
So we're trying to give a perspective on not just the history of the ancient and modern state of Israel, but also on the biblical prophetic connection between the modern Jewish people and the Bible, how the ancient history connects with the modern, where it's going.
The Israel course, The Biblical, Historical, and Modern Perspective, is a 7-part movie course that condenses the history and contribution of the Jewish people.
We're dealing with such a complex situation that people tend to have very little information on. And we know the media can be very, very biased.
Rabbi Ken Spiro, one of the film's creators, says they're taking a holistic approach on politics, religion, and philosophy.
We show in one of our movies, Israel Inside. It's such a dynamic, creative, positive force in history, yet why Israel has been, the Jewish people have been the most hated people in human history.
When people think about Israel, they think about war, or religion, or even falafel.
The Israel Inside course focuses on modern Israel, its advances, and contributions to the world.
But to me, when I think about Israel, I think of the triumph of the human spirit. Israelis, surrounded by enemies, have turned a desert with hardly any natural resources into a flourishing, productive, and caring society.
Spiro presents 2 of the videos.
In recent years, the Jewish people's connection to the land of Israel has become somewhat of a contentious issue. But in fact, every year, more and more archaeology is unearthed that clearly demonstrates the Jewish people's ancient connection to the land of Israel.
One of his favorites is The Edge of History.
And that's about prophecy in the end of days. And the reason I love that material so much is, of everything I present as an educator, it's probably the most condensed. It not only gives the whole sweep of what Jewish history is about, but what it focuses on is current events, what's going on now.
The final class teaches students how to effectively stand up on behalf of Israel.
Every individual has the ability to communicate for Israel, to inspire people about Israel, and to educate people about who Israel really is.
Spiro believes using truth and little-known facts about Israel will help people make their own decisions about Israel and the Jewish people. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem. Well, it really does seem when people know more about Israel, it changes their perspective. That's it for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline, coming to you from Brussels, Belgium. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.